6:30. There'll be a little space now before you see another picture, I think. First, Barney's album is actually Uncle Jake's album out in Canada. This is a good picture. I recognize everybody on there. There's Uncle Alf, Uncle Henry, Aunt Hattie, Uncle Carl, Grandma, Uncle Pete, my mother, Teresa, Uncle Frank, and Aunt Mary. This picture is taken in Rome City, Indiana. That's Grandma, and I don't know who the other one is. This is a postcard. I'll turn it around. You can see the other side. It's dated 1908. See the date up there, 1908, October the 20th. It's a 1-cent stamp. It's written in Old German. That was written by Grandma to Uncle Will out in Canada. There's one postmark says Rome City, and there's another says Englefield, Saskatchewan. I don't understand that. I took this down to the neighbor to have him read that old German stuff, and he couldn't make it out, but he did the last sentence on there. He figured out, said, from your mother who loves you, and signed her name. There's a writing, but I don't think there are many people that could figure that out. It's too fine, too blurred, I guess. I can't identify some of those. I recognize Grandma in the middle. There's Uncle Frank aside of him. And I don't know who the boys are. That's a priest there. Way over to the right, if you can just see the tip of his face, I think that's my dad. I'm not sure. That's Lester on the left, Barney in the middle, and Cletus on the right. Barney says it was taken in the days before the kids had shoes. That's Francis and Rosemary and Cletus. That's Rosemary. This is my mother, and I don't know who the baby is. I don't recognize the background, so it's probably Rosemary or Clyde. Aunt Hattie in her garden. That's a familiar barn, corn crib there. That's Barney, Aunt Hattie, and Uncle Jake. That's Aunt Hattie, and it looks like Uncle Jake. I'm not positive. An old picture. It's not very clear, but I recognize Uncle Pete up in the top on the left there. Grandma's sort of back in there. I can see my dad though, pretty plain. Let me zoom in here once. Can you hold the picture down just a bit? There. Now he's up in the right-hand corner.
Just a minute. I'll get it over there.
Ah, well. That looks like our old schoolhouse. I don't know why the roof is off, whether it was being repaired or a storm. Looks like it might have been a storm because there's trash laying around there. That's a familiar picture of Cletus on the rocking chair. This is my dad and father and mother, and I don't know which one of the kids. Let's see anything in the back. Uncle Carl, Aunt Bertha. Ah, Who's next? Uncle Jake on the right. It's Cletus in the bathtub. You recognize that tub, all right. It's Uncle Pete's barn. I don't know who's standing there. That's Cletus Hipp. Jake and Barney. It looks like a maple tree up by our house. Canadian geese. Jake at the bus station. I don't know who these are, but it's too good to pass up. I'm sure they're cousins. This is Grandma's barn. Looks like they're husking corn. Notice the date on the barn. I don't remember ever seeing that date. That was painted over later on. This is not a good picture, but it's an old one. I recognize Grandma in the middle, and I think those are her sisters. Rosemary says she recognizes Aunt Liz on there. It'd be our great Aunt Liz. That's an old picture.
Where is she? Who's that little old one there?
I don't know.
Maybe that's her.
This is a pretty good picture. There's, well, I don't know who else. I see Aunt Claire in the background, and Helen back there. I see my dad way back against the house. And here, as far as the children, I think, well, right down in front there is Catherine. That's me. I'm the smallest one. And Rosemary's right behind me, holding me there. That's Cletus and Lester next to her. So the two bigger girls on the left, I'm not sure who they are. Let me get closer once.
Just a minute, I'll move it over. You want that?
No, get those big girls. No, down. Don't know who they are. Rosemary probably know. That's Aunt Hattie, and the one on the right there is either Frances or Anna. I think it's Anna Zimmerman. Cletus and Rosemary. That's Grandma, probably saying her prayers. That's an old picture. Grandma, and I don't know who's taking their picture. Somebody visiting there. See the walnut trees up along the road? Who this is, but it's an old Page car. That's Grandma and Rosemary.
And her new red dress.
It's Ann Zimmerman. Grandma and the baby is Lester. I can prove that in a minute. That's down at our house there. See the outdoor John there in the garden. Now there's Rosemary, Cletus, and that same baby, that's Lester. Taken on the same day as that last picture was. Here's a good picture. I see my mother way up in the top on the left. I can spot Aunt Helen, Uncle Pete, Grandma towards the back on the right. I can see my dad way back in the back row. I can't name all. I see Willard down here, Willard Smith. Notice that big straw stack out there by the barn. That is a big one. dead, I'm sure. Let me zoom in here once. There's Aunt Hattie. See her. Kids are moving, I think, when the picture was taken. See my dad back there? Lower the picture a little, if you will. There. See him right in the center now, up on top there? There. That's Uncle Pete with his hand up by his chin, and Helen right aside of him, and my dad right behind Uncle Pete. There's the same three kids again, Rosemary, Cletus, and Lester. I bet that was taken the same day again. Mary's house in Detroit on Boston Boulevard that was torn down for the expressway. That was where Francis was born and raised. Across the street from Francis' house on Boston Boulevard, at that time that was an empty area there, and the Coast Guard or Army or somebody used to practice there. It's Agnes, Uncle Henry's daughter, and Barney. It's Uncle Carl, Aunt Bertha, and Aunt Hattie. This is up St. Michael's and Frank's, I think, and I see my dad and mother there. That's Uncle Andy stooping down talking to one of the kids. I suppose I don't know if that's Rosemary or who the girl is there. Yeah, that's right. That might be over at the shrine. There's Grandma with Rosemary, Cletus, and Lester. Same day, maybe even same. We even had that picture before. I'm not sure. That's my mother, Ann Zimmerman, and I see Grandma in the background. It's in front of their house. I don't know who this is, but it's a good car. This is Aunt Marie. She just died a couple months ago at the age of what, 94? Was it?
90, I don't know, something.
Left of the hardware store in Canada after it burnt down. Way back years ago. Her Uncle Alf's children. I see Aunt Claire on the right there. And that's probably Catherine way down the bottom on the right. But there's, I don't know, Paul's in there, Willard, Walter. I don't know for sure who's who there. I see Rosemary right in the center. And Hattie's to her right there, to our left. I see Bertha Niedermeyer way over in the right, on the bottom. The rest of them, I'm not sure who's who there. Well, there's Aunt Hattie on the right. Nori is next to her. No, the next one I don't know.
Francis.
No, and I think Susie on the far left. That's probably Aunt Helen up on the porch. That's Uncle Pete, Aunt Helen, Uncle Alf hiding behind my dad there, Aunt Clara next, and my mother on the right. And that's Catherine, I imagine, down below there. It's in front of Grandma's house. That's Willard for sure, but I'm not certain who the two ladies are. That's Cletus and Rosemary. It's over at Miss Nelson's place. They're pointing at the streetcar coming along. That's Willard on Willard Smith on the left, and I think it's Benny Holler next to him. That's at Grandma's house. Carl's house, when they moved it back, widened the highway there, they had to move his house back. It's Uncle Pete's house, and I see Aunt Hattie, Nori, Susie, and the other one I don't know. Then there's, I think that's Bertha, the little one there, probably, I don't know.
Going into the house.
This is Uncle Jake and his oldest children, Isabella, who died in 1931, incidentally, and Miletus, Barney, and Ralph. I think that's who they are. Taken on Francis' 65th birthday, which was 1971. In the back row, there's Bob Zimmerman, myself, Larry Kelly, Carl Smith, that's Francis' brother, Bill Fisher, he's a descendant from the Fisher brothers, Don Haggerty, and way over in the corner is Bill Zimmerman. The second row is Pat Hipp, Barbara Zimmerman, Pat Beckley, Andy Fisher, and Catherine Zimmerman. In the front row is Diane Kelly, Francis McKay, Ann Zimmerman, and Mary Haggerty. This is a good picture, but you can't identify everybody on there. Way over to the left is my mother. Let's go down to the middle. That's Grandma in the middle. And to the left is Rosemarie holding a baby, and that baby's either Grace or me. I don't know which one. I see Uncle Pete right in back of Grace there, and Aunt Hattie is back there, back of Grandma. Uncle Andy is back of Grandma, right straight back. He's holding a glass up in the air.
The boys.
The boys down below there. First one is Lester, and I'm not sure who the next one is. If it's Clayt, why, that would make me the baby there. If that's me, then the baby's Grace.
Maybe his patent leather slippers on.
I don't know. But I see a lot of people on there. I know uncles and aunts, Uncle Alf, Aunt Clara. Let me zoom into Grandma there. Lester, I'm almost sure down there, and that looks like Nori, that's down next to the boys there. That looks like Susie. That looks like Catherine Wade, that little girl down there below. Catherine Smith. Okay, that's enough of that one. Well, that's us kids, right? Yeah. And playing in right in the sandbox there by the woodshed. That's Rosemarie, Claytus, Lester, and I presume myself. That's Uncle Will and Aunt Hattie, I believe. That's Uncle Pete and Aunt Helen. I don't know who the boy is over there. Recognize many of those, but that's my mother in the middle, and that's my dad sitting down And that boy's got the croquet mallet right in his face. I can't recognize the rest of them. That's Grandma in front of her house. You can see the old house down there. That tree that you see in behind Grandma there, looks like it's about as big around as your wrist, is now a humongous big tree. That tree is at least 2 foot in diameter. It just covers the whole house. You can't even see the house from the road except for the one side. That's Uncle Alf and Aunt Clara. Uncle Carl and Aunt Bertha. It's not too awfully long ago.
Oh,
This Grandma, Aunt Mary, Uncle Pete, and the boy is Clayt. We've got several pictures taken at that same time because I recognize Aunt Mary's dress. It'll be the same dress in a bunch of pictures. This picture is taken the same day. On the bottom row is Aunt Hattie, Aunt Mary, Grandma, and my mother. In the back is Uncle Jake, Uncle Alf, Uncle Pete, Uncle Frank, and Uncle Carl. This is taken the same day, the same place. The only thing that just moved around a little bit. Sitting down there is my mother on the left, Aunt Mary, Grandma, and Aunt Hattie. And on the back is Uncle Alf, Uncle Pete, Uncle Frank, Uncle Carl, and Uncle Jake. They're almost in reverse order. It's Grandma, Ann Zimmerman, and Billy Zimmerman. And I think that's Rosemary standing in the corner of the house there. Sitting down is Uncle Pete and Aunt Helen and their children in the back. There's Florin, Susie, Nori, Jeff, and Bertha. That was torn out of Barney's book before he said I could bring the book along with me. He gave me that picture. That's the old Page car in front of Grandma's house, and that's Uncle Andy sleeping on the grass there, and it looks like Uncle Will and I don't know who this is. Look in the back there, see if it's got a name on it.
Uncle Andy's sleeping. Will and Francis.
Francis. This is a get-together at Grandma's house again. It's too far away. It isn't close enough to tell who they are. I recognize a few on there.
Try to zoom in.
Way over on the right, in the middle there, on the right is Uncle Pete, and back is Uncle Helen, Aunt Helen. I don't know. I see my mother on there. I see Uncle Alf, Aunt Mary. It's not a very good picture. I'll try zooming in here, but I don't think it'll help much. I see Rosemary. There's Grandma in the middle, and Rosemary right aside of her. Looks like one of us, Lester or me, in the bottom center there. I wonder if that's Aunt Liz, the other old lady. I bet that's Aunt Liz. There's my mother and father right there and behind Grandma, see? I see Uncle Elf's head in the back there. There's Aunt Mary. I think she's wearing that same dress again. Probably taken the same day. Aside of her is Uncle Andy. There's Bertha down below. I see her, Bertha Niedermeyer. said Uncle Pete and Aunt Helen there. That did help, didn't it? This is a wedding picture, Wilma and Hugh MacDonald in 1947. They live in British Columbia, Vancouver now. It's Aunt Marie. That's Grandma and Mother Ludovica. That's Mother Ludovica sitting down and Sister Clara standing up. It's Uncle Jake on the left, my dad, Ralph, and my mother. That's my grandma. That's the old house down below. This picture was probably taken from the steps there of the new house. Looks like she just got done washing the milk strainer and the buckets. That's the new house on the left, and the old house behind it, and a big old page car in the middle, and a dog sleeping away there. That's Uncle Jake, Aunt Bertha. No, it's Uncle Carl shaking hands with Barney, and Aunt Bertha in the center, and Uncle Jake on the right. That's Aunt Hattie, and I don't know who the children are, but it's the side of their house, on the south side of the house, I think. Yeah, you can see the hitching post out in the front yard. Our Canadian geese, that's Uncle Jake on the left. That's Meletus and Eva Smith and Cletus, Hipp, and Lucille. Gosh, what makes that noise? This is an old picture taken in front of Grandma's house. I can recognize only a very few on there. It's taken before I was born. I think that's Aunt Helen up on top. Slide it along. You see Aunt Claire in the middle up there now. There's Grandpa Smith, and standing down below between the girls there. I really can't recognize the rest of them. Here's an old picture I've been trying to identify for a long time. Can't find anybody that recognizes them, or anybody on there. They look like they're related, though. It sure looks like, to me, it looks like Uncle Ed up on the top left-hand side. Maybe not. Looks like about 3 generations there, maybe 4. And they're all related, but who are they?
Good.
Here's another real old one that I can't identify. There's a cousin of ours, a descendant of Matthias Grimmer out in California, that sent this picture to me. It's a picture of a picture, really, and she claims that that's Matthias Grimmer and Anna Maria, his wife, about his 3rd wife, I think. But she isn't absolutely certain, and she was hoping I could identify them, and I certainly cannot. That's Grandpa and Midgie. That takes pretty good. Well, that's Grandma and Grandpa, myself, Freddie, and Barbara. That's Clayton Lucille, myself, and my mother. That's my father and mother's wedding picture. I have negatives for that, incidentally. That's my grandfather and grandmother, Charles Hipp and Rosa Hipp. I imagine that's their wedding picture. I have negatives of that too. It's my father and mother and Denny Hay. That's, I think, Clay driving the 4 horses. And Lester probably shocking. I can name the horses as well as the people. That looks like Dolly on the end here. And Don next. And then Nellie. And I forget which other horse that is. Maybe it's Queen over there. I can name the horses and not the people.
I'll try to zoom in.
I'll try to zoom in here once. Well, I can't tell. Anyway, it's a good picture. That's Cletus, myself, and my dad. Like my 1940s. That's Butch Smith and his family. That's Rosemary and not sure, maybe Agnes Smith. And I can't see who the boys are behind. Looks like it was taken the same time as a bunch of those other pictures. The corn back there looks the same. That's me. Miss America, 1966. She autographed that down in the GM building. It's Ann Zimmerman, in front of our house at home. Years ago, they used to drive their car right out in the front yard like that. I remember that. It's Grandma, seeing her prayers again. That's Grandma and Bill Zimmerman, and Grace there on the left, and Billy Zimmerman down below. Another picture of Clay eating his cookie. That's Rosemary by Spirea Bush. That's Uncle Will from Canada and Rosemary with her fur coat. I wonder where that was taken. John Smith, Jeff, my father and mother. These are all Bicks. In the center is Godfrey Bick. That would be my great-grandfather, my dad's grandfather. And over here on the left, on the bottom, is Mary Bick. That would be my dad's stepmother. Way over to the right on the bottom is Uncle Ed, really my great-uncle, Ed Bick. And up on top on the left is great-aunt Lily Swerman, and on the right is Katie Schaefer, great-aunt Katie Schaefer.
This is my mom and dad taken up in Manistee. This is my dad. He told me he was 21 years old when he had it taken in Toledo. My dad and Marianne and Donnie taken on at Eleanor in Toledo. My mom and Annie Quinn taken in the backyard in Toledo and when they lived in Seeger Avenue. There's my dad and Donnie and me. Donnie was 4 weeks old. This was taken the same day. Dad and me and Donnie. This is Melvin's birthday cake, and there's my mom and Donnie, Marianne, and my dad over at Seeger when we lived there. I can come. There's Dad, Joe Quinn, Donnie, my mom, right after she'd had her heart attack and gotten out of the hospital, and came over to Seeger to stay with us for a few weeks, and Mary Ann. Taken out on the side of the yard at Seeger. There's my dad, Nanny, my mom, me, Donnie unhappy about this picture, and Mary Ann not even aware that it's being taken. This is my dad. I think it was taken up in Manistee when they lived on Walnut. This was taken when my dad and I were walking down the street about a block from Kaminsky Park. We were going to watch the White Sox play baseball. I was a student nurse out in Oak Park. This was taken by a sidewalk photographer. We didn't know it was being taken at the time. This is my Uncle Pat when he was in the Army in World War I. Can you zoom in a little? Okay. This is my mother on the left, my Grandma Garvey in the center, and Aunt Minnie Garvey, or Kimmel rather, on the right. It's taken over when we lived on Mansfield, my mother and Mary Ann decorating the tree for Christmas. This is my baby picture.
That's cute.
Okay. This is Joe Quinn's baby picture. It's my Uncle Pat again, Patrick Joseph Garvey. My mother's mother, Sarah Shannon Garvey. That's a picture of my father at Seeger taken with Donnie and on my dad's 76th birthday. This was taken at Seeger Avenue in Toledo, and that's my mom and me, Annie Quinn, and Nanny in the backyard. Okay. Put it. This is Laura Street in Ludington. That's the house my mother and her sisters and brother were born. It's no longer in existence. My mom and Donnie when we rented a cottage up in Oak Hill in Manistee. It's a picture of Hesslin in his office as a lawyer, and my mother went to visit him to see his nice new office. My dad with Mary Ann and Donnie when we lived at Seeger. Okay. That's Donnie and Mary Ann with my mother on her birthday in 1954. Okay. There's my dad and Hessie and my mom. The dad and mom are celebrating their birthday. It's the same 1954. They always celebrated it together because one's birthday was just a day after the other in May. And that is Donnie and Mary Ann with my mother and dad in May, and that was also taken, I think, over at
Looks like Mansfield to me.
could be.
It's the backyard at Mansfield.
There's me and Hessie when we were a couple years old. Hessie and I were a year or two older than the last picture. Okay. Dress was sent to me by my aunt, Sister Mary Patricia, my mother's sister. One of the nuns embroidered it and made it and gave it to her to send. Okay. Okay. There Hessie and I are in our first communion outfits. My mother made that dress. And the veil is one that my aunt, Sister Mary Patricia, wore when she was became a Sister of Mercy. First of all, they go in as brides of God, and then they go in their black habits the next time. And that was cut down from the veil that she wore. Okay. Here's Joe and Nanny. The suit is made of velvet. My mother made the suit, and she made the blouse. The blouse was white silk, and the tie was a red satin tie. Nanny, I remember that dress. She must have worn it several years, but must have been impressed as a child because it was black satin and it had a light beige lace you can see on the inside going down. Okay. It's my mother's sister, Sister Mary Patricia, that I've mentioned before.